death so you can live. Dr. King was an awful human being. Civil rights was a huge mistake. Let's just sit those side by side because that came from the mouth of a same individual. Now you start to see the exterior being a mirror to the interior. Let's go one more, two more. He said, quote, I believe in the Bible, and I believe that Christ rose from the dead on the third day. He said, this is the foundation of my faith, and it guides my actions, unquote. Hold it. He also said, let's hold it side by side, black women do not have brain processing power to be taken seriously. You have to go steal a white person's slot, unquote. Now I want to pause here and say, for the critics who say you're pulling stuff out of context, two things. One, I'm happy, I just don't have time today, happy to give you the full context. Two, the full context does not change the fact that this is racism. Okay, so let's hold those about. Just one more here, one more, okay? Quote, I want to be remembered for courage for my faith. That would be the most important thing for me when I die. Unquote. Hold that. One more quote. Quote, I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment to protect our other God-given rights. Let's just put those right beside each other. Now, if this makes you uncomfortable, I would invite you to pause for a minute and think about how uncomfortable this makes our people of color feel. And what I want to say to you is, if these quotes that Jesus defeated death so you can live by Charlie Kirk and Dr. King was an awful human being and civil rights was a huge mistake, if these feel incompatible, it's because they are. These quotes are not compatible with each other, and I also would like to say they're not compatible with the teachings and way of Jesus. And what you see in this moment, this week in American history, is you see the twisting of the truth. And this isn't new. The colonizers who came to America said they were Christians. The KKK said they were Christians. There have been mass shooters whose profile said they were Christians. There were insurrectionists on January 6th who flew Christian paraphernalia. They claimed to be Christians. There were, check this out, some of you know this, slave owners who claimed to be Christian. And what I want to say is I can no longer, as a pastor, as a human, and as someone who's given their life to the way of Jesus, I can no longer stand by as Christianity gets hijacked by a particular agenda that is not the way of Jesus. I cannot stand by as a Christian and watch Christ's name get hijacked to further justify hate, racism, bigotry, misogyny, and white supremacy. I believe the path of Jesus is the path of generosity, nonviolence, caring for the poor, the vulnerable, the oppressed, and the marginalized. And part of what I hope comes out of this moment in American history is that maybe, and this is my prayer, maybe what we're seeing is that all of this is surfacing so that we can begin to see just how much the name of Christ has been twisted and turned.
Pastor Cody Deese joins us right now from Georgia. Pastor, glad to have you here. And look, I was so happy to see this because what I have said consistently, and I was talking to Reverend Jim Wallace about this. A lot of black preachers have been speaking on this, and what we are seeing with what Joe Walsh, a former MAGA congressman, longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, he said absolutely is white Christian nationalism. This is not about Jesus. This is not about what Jesus preached about. This is not about the teachings of Jesus. What this is in essence the moral majority 2.0 on steroids. This is what Paul Weyrich and Jerry Falwell and others wanted to do. And frankly, being a white preacher, I thought it was even more important to hear that from you because too many white preachers have been silent.
Yeah, thanks, Roland. I think it is a crucial message that needs to be said right now. And a part of my story, Roland, just so you know, is I came out of that moral majority type movement. My father was a Southern Baptist pastor. I got my undergrad from Jerry Falwell's university, Liberty University. So I am a product of someone who has been raised and conditioned to see the world in a particular way. And then over the years, I begin to evolve, grow up. My own consciousness began to expand. I began to encounter real human beings that were different than me. And in that process, I began to realize that a lot of what I was raised to believe and what I was raised to see Jesus as did not match what I was encountering in the world around me. And it didn't match what I was encountering when I read the scriptures itself, from the prophets in the Old Testament all the way through to this revolutionary, subversive Jesus, all the way through to the book of Revelation, where John of Patmos is writing some of the most subversive literature in the context of the first century Roman Empire that has ever been written. And when you read those things, as a person like me who has given their life to the way of Jesus, studied the scriptures, I graduated from Candler School of Theology, so I've been educated from people who saw this long before I did. But your eyes begin to open up and begin to expand, and you begin to realize, oh my God, especially me, I have a social intersection that is crucial to be able to speak to my own family members. Sometimes you need to disturb the family text feed. Sometimes there needs to be some conflict. And everybody, seems to be uncomfortable around conflict. But one of the things I've learned is conflict sometimes is the doorway. It is the path that can actually lead us to greater transformation.
Let me get you a cold one. Try one of these. That is the best buffalo wing in the county.
You eat buffalo?
No, it's just chicken. It was invented in Buffalo, the city.
So it's not buffalo.
You all right, man?
It's quite spicy.
Drink the beer.
You know, I watched Texas Congressman Troy Niels say in a congressional hearing that if Charlie Kirk was living in biblical era, he would have been the 13th disciple. I saw the Cardinal Dolan of New York say, he was like the Apostle Paul. He was a saint, and he just made people uncomfortable. But you read what Charlie Kirk said, and you read direct quotes. And what's been amazing is to watch people say, even some black folks say, they said these things about him, and I went back and I listened to what he actually said, and it's been taken out of context, and you didn't understand the nuance, and so you was just the people, y'all are pushing this sort of stuff, and I'm sitting there going, do you act like we don't have ears and we don't have eyes and we did not hear exactly what we heard?
Yeah, there's no question. I call that, here's the thing, call it whatever you want. Sanitized racism, call it rebranded racism. But as a white male, let me just speak to any other white males that are listening, or white people that are listening in general. We're not fooling anyone, and we're not fooling ourselves. And I know, because I was raised and conditioned to see the world a particular way. I know what my ears are hearing, and you can place all the context you want around it. Someone said to me recently, Pastor, he did not say, quote, black women. You're right. He called specifically 4 black women, one of which was Michelle Obama. And these educated black women is who he was talking about. And in the context, it doesn't change. And until we can come to a place where we acknowledge that rebranded, sanitized, polite racism is still racism. And the great Franciscan priest Richard Rohr says it like this. He says, you cannot heal what you do not acknowledge. And this is why it's so imperative when I see things like this administration and Trump and MAGA pushing to remove images of slavery from museums. We're regressing. We're moving backwards. And he knows what he's doing. This administration knows what they're doing. And I'm learning more and more that what this is underneath, what it is white supremacy. And a part of the reason, perhaps, many of these leaders, these white male leaders, part of the reason many of them are kicking and screaming and putting out the dog whistles, and I'm getting them, God knows the people of color are getting them. Part of the reason I believe that's happening is because they are so terrified of one word, equality. Equality.
Yep.
And what is equality to us
yep.
feels like oppression to them.
I'm going to send you my producers will get your address. I want to send you my book, White Fear: How the Browning of America is Making White Folks Lose Their Minds. And the reason I chose that title, and people, there was some TV produced. There was actually a network African American who's a broadcast a show host, and who wanted to have me on the show, but it was like, oh, my producers are uncomfortable with your title, and I said, well, I actually write about those very producers in the book. And I see it, and because I saw what was happening. And what's been driving me crazy is I saw this in 2009. It was, and speaking prophetically about it. And I said what we're facing. And I literally said, I remember John Avlon and I were at CNN. We were working there together. He's now in Congress. And I said, John, we are in the beginning stages of white minority resistance. And he was like, what? I said, John, I'm telling you. I said, we're becoming a nation of people of color. Then when you see the advancement of the Great Replacement Theory, then when you see the attacks on undocumented workers, oh, they're replacing us. They're taking our jobs. We're losing our way of life. And you're seeing all of the, you hear the phrases, you hear the language. And what this about is, it is literally about, oh my God, America's changing. Now these same MAGA people, Pastor, I'm now seeing them complain, and I'm seeing their posts on social media. I'm seeing them now complain about people of color in France and other European nations. One person posted, when I go to Paris, I don't want to see all of these Muslims and Africans on the street. I'm like, well, you do know they have immigration there, and you do know that the white population, they are seeing a decrease in fertility rates in European nations. And when Elon Musk is tweeting about fertility, and Charlie Kirk, just 2 days before he was shot and killed, was on Laura Ingraham's show complaining about white fertility as well. This is literally about white people in America being scared to death that they no longer are going to be the majority.
Yeah. I want to see your book. It sounds fantastic. And I would also add, part of the reason and part of the way, I would say, that they're bolstering this grasp at white power and white supremacy is not new. Some of this has been going on for years. Honestly, the merging of empire and Christianity can go all the way back to, somewhere around 312 with Emperor Constantine. And there's a lot of scholarship that argues that that's where Christian nationalism kind of has its early roots. But you can trace it from there. And what you see right now is a president who, might I add, does not care about Christianity. This president doesn't care about Christianity. Trump cares about Trump. Trump cares about power. Trump cares about authority. And Trump cares about self-preservation. And the idea that my own family, evangelicals, used to teach over and over and over again, be careful, it's a slippery slope, they would say. Make sure that the message of Jesus, the narrow path, the way of Christ, doesn't get co-opted by the far left. And they would warn us about CNN. They would warn us about the liberals at the university. And all along, while they were demonizing this other side, all along, their plan was to collect as much power as they possibly can, because that is what Christian nationalism is, essentially. It is trying to make America a Christian nation by force. And what I would like to say is America is not a Christian nation. You can go back to its origins. It's not a Christian nation. It is a nation with Christians, and it is a nation with Muslims and atheists and Buddhists, but it is not a Christian nation. And what you're seeing right now is this administration recognizing what works. Oh, we need evangelicals. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to toe the party line. We're going to play with these images that we're given. I mean, think about the image of Trump holding a Bible in front of the church. Is there a more iconic image of the merging of empire and religion than that image? Think about the AI image of him inside a Pope outfit. Is there a more iconic image of a merging of empire and Christianity together? But what I would just say in closing is this: those two do not run parallel with each other. The way of Trump, the way of empire, and the way of Christ do not run together. One is about truth, integrity, justice, and liberation. And the other is about greed, corruption, revenge, and oppression. And it is critical that we make a distinction between the two.
I mean, yeah, you absolutely nail it. And listen, he cut a deal. He basically said last time, all right, what do y'all want? All right, I'm going to appoint all the judges y'all want. I'm going to sit here. He doesn't care about. First of all, Donald Trump was pro-choice. He doesn't care about white evangelicals. He doesn't care about any of these people. He's like, he wants power. Okay, great. Y'all want that? Go right ahead. Cool. Whatever. I'm going to give you the judges. He stands out here and they're like, oh, he's the most pro-life. That's all nonsense. It's nonsense. And what they have done is they've made a deal with the devil. And I'm saying that for a reason. You look at their particular actions and what they are all about right now. And again, when I looked at that memorial service, when I looked at the things that Charlie Kirk said, I'm sitting there going, how in the world can y'all say that's Jesus? How can you even fix your mouth? Speaker Mike Johnson, okay, and you're sitting here, and he's supposed to be the super duper Christian, and I'm going, wait a minute, I'm sorry, how in the world can you say you love Jesus and you love Scripture and all of that, but you cut money from the poor? Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to understand. Listen, I was born and raised Catholic. First 25 years of my life was Catholic, so we only saw the missalette every Sunday. But since I was 25, the last 30 plus years, I've actually read the Bible. Jesus talked a whole lot about the poor, helping those in need. And what these folks are saying is, damn them, we gonna ride with the billionaires.
Yeah, you could use the word, it is anti-Christ. It is the opposite of what Christ taught. And the reality is, if you think about it, it would be the ultimate deception to have that which is against Christ or anti-Christ to hide itself inside a religion with the name of Christ. And I believe that's what we're seeing right now. The book of Revelation, the actual word behind it is apocalypse. And I know many of us have like a modern understanding of what apocalypse is, but the actual original Greek, it means literally an unveiling. And a part of what the writer behind the book of Revelation is doing, and a lot of people see that book and they're like, man, that guy, he must have been like strung out on mushrooms or something. It's so symbolic and chaotic and looks like he's having hallucinations. But when you get into the book, it's incredibly profound of how John is writing about what's happening in that oppressive first century world with this authoritarian dictator leaders that had been passed down from the Caesars. And what you see is John is encouraging these followers of Jesus, because you have religion getting in bed with empire, and some being convinced that it may actually be the way, like the way to peace, the way to salvation. They bought into this lie. They bought into a myth of like redemptive violence. And John says, no, 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 no. What I'm trying to do here is I want to expose, I want to pull the curtain back. I want to unveil what's happening, because I want you to see behind the scenes of actually what is going on here. And a part of what we're doing as a collective, so I pastor this church. It's called Vinings Lake. It's in Mableton, Georgia, which is like 20 minutes north of downtown Atlanta. It's an amazing group of people, so much diversity. But a part of what we're trying to do is on a local level, we're trying to pull back the curtain every time we gather going, hey, did you guys see that? Did you hear that? And what did you hear? Because here's what I heard. So you can take statements from Charlie Kirk, you can watch his memorial service, and you could look at that, and a lot of evangelicals are like, oh, look at that. What a great man. And you can also begin to realize this truth, that just because it has the name of Christ doesn't mean it is the way of Christ. And we, as a collective, are going to continue, so long as this administration keeps continuing to insist on using Christ's name, using God's name, which I would argue they're using it in vain. That is the definition of using God's name in vain. As long as they continue to use God's name, we will, as a collective, continue to pull the curtain back and attempt to show our community and our world what this actually is. And what it is a co-opting and a hijacking of a beautiful movement that started years ago by a Nazarene, a brown-skinned Nazarene, not a white, Republican, gun-toting Jesus of the imagination of evangelicals. But I mean a brown-skinned Jesus, a revolutionary who flipped tables over in the temple and who actually was crucified by a merging of the Roman Empire and the specific areas of Judaism of their day. This Jesus, we're going to continue to try to show the world his way, his movement, and continue to expose what this administration is doing that Jesus would absolutely push against and never be a symbol for.
Before I go to my panel for questions, are you getting pushback? Are there people who known you for years, who went to college with you? There are church members who said, I'm sorry, Pastor, you've gone way too far. I can't listen to any of this. Because we saw a whole lot of people posting, oh, if your preacher, if he was not extolling the virtues of Charlie Kirk the Sunday after he was shot and killed, then you should leave that church.
Yes. The dog whistles for the far right have been heard. They hear it, they know it, and they're coming after lots of folks, because I've had conversations. But I will tell you, people like me at my social intersection, I think they despise just about more than anyone, because I can expose exactly what they're doing, because I grew up underneath them, so I know the language and I know what's happening. Now, our church has a whole history. I mean, back 7, 8 years ago, when the first administration came in, I began to speak on 2 subjects that killed our church. And when I say killed it, at one point we had 700 people, we got down to 12. So my biggest fear as a pastor came true. And the 2 subjects that the 2 subjects that killed it were not LGBTQIA+. By the time we got to same-sex marriage, we got a standing ovation. It wasn't that. The 2 subjects that killed it were, 1, I talked about capitalism, 2, nationalism. In my opinion, those 2 subjects are 2 of the most dangerous subjects to speak about in the Bible Belt of the South. And when I started talking about nationalism and the merging of Christianity and white Christian nationalism, even in the first term, there was a slow and then speedy exodus. And our church died. It died. My biggest fears came true. Then COVID came. We didn't meet for a year and a half. And then we came out of COVID, And there were still probably 12 to 20 people, and we all looked at each other going, we need community now more than ever, so how about we continue to gather? And we did. The second time Trump came in about 8 months ago, the opposite effect happened, Roland. Instead of a whole bunch of people leaving, our building right now is filled with capacity. People have come in that have left old churches, people that are walking away from evangelicals. Some of them call themselves ex-evangelicals. Some of them call themselves post-Christians because they've seen it. I'm telling you, they've seen it. They understand what they're seeing, and there is a rise of people, specifically in our area in Atlanta, that are showing up because they're saying, you know what, we still love this Jesus and the subversive nature of this Jesus, but what we have seen and how Jesus has been used, we want no part of. And so they're leaving a lot of these places and they're coming into our spaces. And it has been, as wild as this might sound, some of the hardest, most difficult times as a pastor. And I would just say both administrations. Roland, I cried the second time Donald Trump got elected. And I'll tell you why. Many reasons, but one of which was, and forgive my selfishness, but one of which was, my God, I don't think I can pastor through another term of this man. But what I realized in the second term is I'm not the man I was in the first term. I'm prepared now. I am convinced that all of our voices matter, not just some, all of them matter. And so we encourage our people right now, man, don't sit back. Like, let your family know. Don't sit back at the family gathering when the racist comment's thrown and just kind of giggle to the side, or I don't really want to cause any trouble. No, this is the moment where we are to step in, speak up and say, you know what? Not today. We're not doing that. We're not having that conversation. And I will not entertain ideas like that. And this is a part of what we're trying to navigate as a community, because we have people, Roland, that are filled in our building that are navigating very complex relational dynamics right now.
All of our corporate training is boring. If this is the feedback you get, it's time to book a demo with the biggest tool for training videos, Synthesia. You know, select a presenter, type in the script, and you get a video. Look at this.
Hey there, my name is Alex, and I'll be guiding you through this training session.
And then update or localize that video with a single click. But the first step is booking a demo. 50,000 teams are already using it, saying things like this, and this, and this.
Church's bony wings are gonna blow you away. Get the oohs, not the uhs. Get the yo's, not the no's. Get blown away by Church's wings starting at $5.99. We got you, Church's.
Renita, you're there in Georgia. You get the first question.
Yeah, so not a question so much, but a challenge to the pastor. My dad also was a pastor in the South, so I definitely saw Christianity from a different perspective. And what my challenge is to you is for you to read every single piece of Black history that you can get your hands on, because this is not a recent hijacking. This is not Christianity. Since the beginning of this country has always been used to advance white supremacy. During slavery time, slave masters would tell slaves, the more you work and the more obedient you are, the closer you are to Jesus, the better Christian that you are being. Slaves weren't allowed to read books unless it was the Bible, and the Bible was used as this is the only thing that you can read. So even after slavery, when you look at Reconstruction, during that time you had things like the Black Codes, where it was illegal for Black folks to speak to groups of other Black people unless it was in church. Through Christianity, giving Christian sermons, and even those sermons had to be approved by white folks. Like, the words literally had to be approved. And then you brought up some about the moral right, and you talked about the KKK and how they use Christianity to support what they were doing. So what the challenge is for you to read every single piece of Black history, because Christianity has always been used to advance white supremacy in this country. And that's why I think your congregation really struggled, as you said, when you talked about capitalism. That goes back to what I was saying about, understanding that the harder you work and the more obedient you are as a slave, being told that that made you closer to Jesus and that much closer to getting in heaven. That same type of stuff is what goes back to capitalism. And then the nationalism of always using Christianity to say that Black people need to be a subclass and white people should inherently be in charge, and this needs to stay a majority white country, speaks to nationalism. It's always been used this way, and it won't end when Trump is no longer there, because it's always been the history of this country.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think a part of our task as a local collective is to decenter the whiteness. And so part of the way we do that, specifically at a local level, is we just bring in those who have been pushed to the edges. And we elevate, first of all, we buy their writings, we buy their books, and we do our best to elevate their voices as well. And they're obviously a part of us. I mean, they're part of our teaching team, they're a part of our leadership, things like that. I think that's critical moving forward. And I could not agree more. And I've been trying to explain this to my own group of people. I think it's easy to scapegoat and say, oh, that man is the problem over there. And the reality is, I am actually getting ready to release a book. It's called Discovering Your Internal Universe, right here. Comes out next week, October the 9th. It's about anxiety, panic, and fear, but the entire book is about doing our own shadow work, like going within and actually working out all that is deep within us that we have repressed, we have ignored, we have turned our head away from and tried to pretend it wasn't there. And a part of the concern for white males right now is even those that are pushing hard against what's happening is I think there is a way to both do our own internal work, our own shadow work, as Carl Jung calls it, and at the same time simultaneously call out the unconscious acts of those who are oppressing people around us. And both needs to be done. And this is a part of, even when I look at the Charlie Kirk situation, I say, okay, that's clear to me. That isn't like Christianity. I think the word for it is racism. These comments are racist. I simultaneously acknowledge this man, in my opinion, is human. He's made in the image of God. And at the same time, what he said hurt a lot of people around me, a lot of our congregation, even me. And I would say it must be condemned. I can hold both those together at the same time. And a part of what I think the challenge is as we call out the oppression around us, we also do our own inner work simultaneously. And the reason I say that is because, my point, it's easy to throw it all on this man. And I think one of the reasons we love to point fingers over there is because as a white male, sometimes it's easier to point out the racism in Trump than it is to recognize it in me. And one of the reasons that I am so quick to call it out is because I know how I was raised. And I have spent years in therapy, and that's not an exaggeration, years in therapy. And all of it was intertwined. Anxiety, panic, theology, racism, relational wounds, all of that dwelling in me. And so what would it look like if, instead of trying to clean the projection out there, what if we actually started here and started trying to work on what was happening inside of me? And that goes back to your point. It's not one man. I've seen the vice president. I've seen the Speaker of the House. And just because and when this man does leave, rest assured, racism is not dying. I see people my age, younger, who are still following people like a Charlie Kirk, and all the red flags are going off, going, okay, yep, this doesn't end with one man. This movement, this MAGA movement, doesn't end with one man. And so we've got work to do. But fortunately, I want to leave some hope. Fortunately, there's a whole collective of people that are right here at Vinings Lake. And there's 150, almost a couple hundred of us who are doing our best to do the work. And many of them are young. And I got to be honest, part of the reason I still gather with them, part of the reason I'm still a pastor, is because they honestly bring me hope. They bring me a little bit of hope that, man, maybe there are some people out there whose eyes are opening right now and whose souls are opening, and they're doing some good work in the world.
Scott.
Good evening, Pastor. Thank you for joining us. So much good in your presentation, and so much more I'd love to ask you. You know, generational racism, each of us are not born with a racism gene, and yet we have generational racism because environmentally and at home, people who don't look like me are being taught to hate me simply because of the color of my skin. And I agree with everything you've said, but I don't think evangelicals or white Christian nationalists are that dumb. I think they're liars. I think they're lying to themselves, and that they know what you say is so vitally true, but they reject it because of power and the power of racism and the power of wanting to control, to not lose a white privilege that they did not earn, that somehow sharing with people of color in this country means they're giving up something, which they are not. I can agree with everything you say, but then have you thought much about how we change this? I mean, you have such a thoughtful presentation. The truth, it takes courage. You almost lost your church, but based on truth, it's still there, and you're still preaching the message. What are the top three things that need to happen in this country, or that each of us needs to do to right the ship, if you will, and to take Christ out of white nationalism, or take Christianity out of white nationalism?
Yeah, that's a great question.
Why did I buy life insurance? To keep my promises.
See how the only life insurance program endorsed.
I wonder if maybe the first thing to do is, I don't know, maybe start with ourselves, part of what I was just saying. I think that's where I began. I had to confront my own demons. I had to confront my own way of being conditioned growing up in the South as a Southern Baptist pastor's kid. There were experiences I had. My father-in-law, for example, my father-in-law was fired from a church in Alabama in 1999 for baptizing a black individual. 99 for baptizing a black individual. So these are experiences I've had. And this is no joke. When my wife and I met, one of the first stories we connected on with this, because my father, Southern Baptist pastor, had a very similar experience, though didn't get fired, but took a lot of heat for baptizing a person of color in a little town called Blakely, Georgia at the time at a church. And so we grew up under this environment going, oh, that's interesting. But simultaneously, while you have those experiences, you're being conditioned in a culture that you're not even fully like aware of. And some of these cultures, it can be subtle slights, right? Like, be careful around that neighborhood. Do you hear that? Do you know what I mean? Like those are things that you're picking up along the way. And then what happened for me is when I grew up and got a little bit older, I realized, oh, my goodness, I have more in me than I ever thought I did. And I have to unlearn, or as you know, some of the great writers of our time have already said. I mean, we brought in at our church Austin Channing Brown. I don't know if you know her. She has a fantastic book called I'm Still Here. I don't know of anyone that says it much better than her work. And she came in and shook the foundations of our church. And a lot of people did get upset. They couldn't handle it. Call it white fragility. Call it what you want. But they couldn't handle it. But I think a part of what we do is we start here. Me as a white male, cisgender, heterosexual like me, I start right here. I do my internal work. And then I think second, what we've been talking about, I think there has to be an exposing going on. I don't know about you all, but I am so tired of playing these religious games. Like getting up, having a show, singing our songs, and then walking out the door and being more racist than anyone you could ever imagine, and then convincing ourselves or trying to pretend that we aren't racist, when, to your credit, what you just said, I agree with you. I think most do know. And if I'm honest with you, I wish I could tell you that wasn't true, because it does break my heart. It breaks my heart, because I'll tell you why. Because it's people that raised me. And it's hard to see it, because what it does is it begins to open even your own understandings. And this is why you hear right now in the evangelical movement people talking about deconstruction. And a part of the reason that word is so critical is because the moment you start seeing, as the former person said, the merging that has been around forever of white supremacy and Christianity, the moment you begin to study that history, all of a sudden the foundations that you were raised on begin to crumble. And so then you have to let it just go, like crumble all the way down to the last bolt. And this is what happened to my own faith. And then what begins to happen is you're just standing there going, where do I go from here? And you start attempting some sense of reconstruction. But hopefully in that reconstruction, you have expanded the voices and the friendships and the relationships around you, to where you have people from all walks of life, indigenous culture, black culture, Latino culture, speaking in their perspectives in life. And it helps help you reorganize, reframe, reshape, and begin to reconstruct maybe what Jesus actually intended the entire time he was here. And so I would say those are a couple of things. Let's start with ourselves. Let's move and begin to expose what we're seeing here. And then lastly, I would just say, I do still believe at the local level, change makes a difference. And so for an example, we have an election coming up. We have a city council election coming up in November. We tell our people, we don't want to hear you griping and complaining about who the president is if you're not voting this November in the city council decision.
Exactly.
Because local officials matter. In Cobb County, which is where I'm at, listen, that Georgia matters. We are a state right now, particularly in this, the midterms and the next election, we are a state that's going to be critical. And so collectives like ours, churches like ours, that have a steeple that look like a traditional church, but we've got a whole bunch of folks who've deconstructed and reconstructed and reframing and trying to get back to the original Jesus movement that got hijacked from Constantine forward. Like, there's a whole group of us that are attempting to move into our families going, do you hear what you're saying? Do you see what you are supporting? And some of them do. And I would also say there are still a couple that I believe with all my heart, they just don't see it and they don't understand it. Now, part of the reason that is, and hear me out, is because they sit around and they watch Fox News all day long. And so they're in their echo chamber and they're just hearing these narratives being repeated. And so when I show up for the family gathering and say, hey, are you familiar with the Access Hollywood tape? Because you said you're a devout follower of Jesus, but yet he said he could grab women wherever he want. How does that sit with you? Tell me how you voted for a man that cares anything, doesn't care anything about integrity, and seems to treat women like property and is a convicted felon, and on the list we could go. And here's what I hear a lot of times. I didn't hear about that. To which I pause and say, are they lying, or have they watched so much Fox that they actually haven't heard about this? And so part of my job is to say, okay, that's between you and God, but allow me to inform you, because it's obvious you're not watching anything other than Fox. So let me inform you, and here's the information. And you deliver the information, and then they choose to do with it what they want to do with it. So I do still believe there are some on the edges that are so enveloped in this Fox domain, in this MAGA cult, that they're not hearing the outsiders. And I would just say this, one way, maybe one way we can actually change this thing is when our parents and our parents' parents and our grandparents, when they see their own flesh and blood speaking this truth.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it just, and this is my hope, and I still hold on to the hope. Maybe it shifts a little bit and tenderizes the heart enough where they say, oh, because what we're doing is interrupting their narrative. Because what has
Yeah.
Fox News told them? Fox News has told them, oh, immigrants, they're dangerous. Stay away from them. They're dangerous people. I mean, listen to the way this administration dehumanizes people of color, dehumanizes immigrants, dehumanizes these people that don't look like him, act like him, dress like him, talk like him. And part of what we can do as family members that they know us, they love us, is when we speak up and share these truths, we are disrupting the narrative that they're hearing, because then what they're saying is, oh, wait a minute. Everything Fox News said was left-wing, liberal, Democrat, LGBTQI, destroying America. Wait a minute. That's not my son. That's not my son-in-law. I know my son-in-law, and he's actually trying to follow Jesus here. Yes. So maybe one relationship at a time, we can attempt to disrupt this lie. And it is a lie. This lie that Fox keeps speaking. They have they have taken our parents. They have taken our parents. And I would just say, as a young man with parents and in-laws and grandparents, it's unbelievable to me how you all warned us day in and day out to not get sucked in. And yet you are the very people who got sucked in to a cult, to a movement that is the antithesis to everything you taught us. You told us integrity mattered. You told us that marginalized people matter. You told us to take care of the poor. You taught us all these things. You told us to read the Bible. You told us it was inerrant, inspired, infallible, and that whatever you do, don't abandon the way of Jesus. And all I would say is, friends, we have it. We stuck true to what you've asked us to do. We just took the way of Jesus very seriously. And now we're calling out our evangelical people and we're saying, you have fallen down a slippery slope. Turns out the slippery slope works both ways. And you slip down the Fox News slide, and we are asking you to open your eyes, and we are praying that your heart gets tenderized and you begin to see what many people see around you, and that is that Jesus would not stand for the things that you are standing for. And so
That's right.
Maybe it's a call. It's just a call. It's a call to come home.
Yeah.
It's a call to home. And one of the things we're trying to do as a church is extend the door. Honestly, if you've been a part of MAGA and you're just now opening up and wakening up your eyes and you're going, oh, we messed up. Come.
Yeah.
The prophets had a word for it.
Yeah.
Repent. Turn around.
Yeah.
Come back.
Yep.
Gaza is at a tipping point. The adults.
Yeah.
You preach that thing, Pastor. I appreciate you joining us on the show. Next time I'm in Atlanta, I am going to drop by your church and would love to worship there. And I'm definitely gonna, when I get back to DC, send you a copy of my book.
Oh, please do. Roland, I would absolutely love it. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, seriously, all three of you that are on here. I don't know you, but I know this. We need more conversations like this, and I am grateful for the work you do. So I hope you're blessed. I hope you feel extra inspiration, and keep speaking up, keep doing the work you're doing. And I'm always in Atlanta. If you need a place to stay, we're here.
All right. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.